Welcome to another edition of Boxing from your host, The Islander. This is going to be a recap edition. I'm also going to talk about boxing scoring and put some stuff out there for all of you because I've been doing some research since the last show of what I think possibly ails the judges in scoring, and I'm going to go over it with you. As you know, last week, Deontay Wilder took on Stivern in a rematch of their fight 2 years ago where Wilder had lifted the WBC heavyweight title from Stivern by a lopsided decision in a fight that he had Stivern hurt, and then, basically easily went into deep water and won a unanimous 12-round decision. Since then, Wilder's been on a tear. He's been injured. He's had fights canceled. And finally, Stivern stepped in for, I think it was Ortiz or whoever it was that was taking PEDs, and stepped up. And, all disclosure, if I was doing videos 2 years ago, I would have guessed, or I would have probably picked Stivern to have won that first fight by knockout. Wilder was untested, had never been past, 4 or 5 rounds, or 6 rounds, and then, basically, really shined. And this is one of the things that Gil Clancy, I've been watching a lot of old fights on CBS, and one of Gil Clancy, and I know Max Kellerman has said this too recently, but one of the things Gil Clancy is always harping on is that winning a world title makes a fighter 25 or 30% better because they're more confident. And Wilder, just getting a title shot, looks just almost invincible. I mean, a little bit too cocky for my liking, but that's okay. He could be who he is because he gets the job done inside the ring. This fight, real quickly, basically what ended up happening was, if you watched it for the 2 minutes and 59 seconds that it lasted, Wilder came out and started flipping and popping a very stern jab at Stivern. Some of them land, some of them didn't. Stivern really didn't throw maybe 1 or 2 punches. And finally, I'd say probably a little more than midway through the round, close to between 1.5 minutes and 2 minutes into the round, Wilder stepped back, pounded his chest, and said to Stivern, "Here we go." Threw a 1-2 down the pipe, caught Stivern on the chin, and sent him down into a sitting position against the ropes. Now, here's the deal. Stivern gets up. He wasn't hurt because he was complaining to the referee, telling him he got hit behind the back of the head. I don't know what in the world would make him think he got hit in the back of the head when they were at distance, and those 2 punches went right down the pipe. Well, then Wilder, when the action resumed, Wilder then did what he can never do in a fight against somebody like Joshua, which was basically put his hands by his side, and if I was Stivern, even if he was buzzed, I would have leaped into him with a left hook. You're going to get hit anyway. I don't know what he was waiting for, but Wilder was standing with his arms by his side, daring Stivern to hit him, and said, "Let's go." And when Stivern didn't do anything, Wilder just opened up with shots that were wild from way outside, and Stivern went down again, shots off the top of his head, basically. I think Wilder thought the fight was over at that point, because when Stivern got to his feet and Wilder turned around and looked at him, he's like, "Oh, this isn't over yet." And he went racing after him on the other side of the ring against the ropes and landed 3 or 4 clean punches on Stivern's head, where he finally collapsed onto his knees backwards. And the funny thing about the replay is that you could see the referee, Arthur McCanty Jr., pulling Wilder away and hold on to Wilder, and he basically, his feet were lifted off the ground, basically holding on to Wilder. He got swung off the ground over Stivern, who was still down. I think Stivern thinks that he was fouled, and everything I saw was legal. Now, here's the deal. This is just like with Pacquiao and Mayweather. You see one of them fight, you think they'll beat the other. You see the other one fight, you think they'll beat the opposite one. I don't know who will win between the two, because I don't know what will happen if Anthony Joshua connects on Wilder's chin. Now, here's the other thing. I know that Vladimir Klitschko, with full leverage, landed a right hand on on Joshua's chin, and knocked him down. I got to believe that as much force and velocity or more are behind Wilder's shots. I still don't know who. I before this all started, I would give an edge to Wilder. I still think maybe a slight edge, maybe just because of experience. I mean, he's got more first-round knockouts than Joshua has fights. Okay, that usually the first time I heard a statistic like that was in 1984 when WBA junior lightweight champion Roger Mayweather was defending his title against Rocky Lockridge. It was on NBC, and Ferdy Pacheco said, I think it was Ferdy Pacheco or it was Marv Albert, I don't remember, was saying that Rocky Lockridge had more knockout victories than Roger Mayweather had fights. And what happened? He proceeded to knock him out in the first round. All right, it doesn't mean anything about this fight. On the undercard, you may have seen that Sean Porter, in his very crowd-pleasing style, wink wink, got by Adrian Granados in a very rough fight to watch. He hurt his hand in the fight, and I didn't preview this. I would have picked Porter anyway to win the fight, but by a decision anyway. And also, HBO went to Monte Carlo to do I'm guessing a WBA light heavyweight fight between Dimitri Bivol and Trent Two-Gun. Wait a second, what the heck is going on with my computer? Divisional rankings is what I was looking for. Dimitri, I don't understand why they are talking up Bivol as being the best light heavyweight in the world. I mean, I'm talking about Max Kellerman doing this. I'm thinking to myself, would you really make him a favorite over Kovalev? I mean, I wouldn't. Would you make him a favorite over Adonis Stevenson? I wouldn't. Would you make him a favorite over Bordeaux Jack? I mean, at this point in time, I wouldn't. So I don't know what in the world they're talking about. I mean, unless this is the new style of globalism applied to boxing by the networks, some new style where we'll just say something, put it out there, and you, the stupid consumers, are just going to have to buy what they say. And I'm thinking about this going, I've only seen tape of this guy, and they're trying to tell you that this is that this is the best light heavyweight in the world. I mean, I don't understand why they're pimping these guys. I mean, understand, he might be, but from one round of action, I can't tell very much against Broadhurst, who I think they should have given a chance to actually get up off the canvas. Why, he scores a knockdown with a clean right hand. Why do they jump in and stop the fight automatically? Unless, just like I was saying last week with Anthony Joshua, that they are basically trying to preserve these guys' knockout records and their this fearsome invincibility or something that they have. It's the only thing I could think of, because I think Broadhurst should have been given a chance to get up off the deck and see what happened, in the next round, because the round was over when that happened. That's going to do it for the recap there, and we're 7 minutes into this. I do want to talk about the scoring and also do a couple of this day in boxings later on this week, because this is November is a very rich month with history. Let me see what's coming up on the schedule, as Christopher Walken would say in what's the name of that James Bond movie? Not The Living Daylights, the View to a Kill. Right on schedule. Okay, here we go. Showtime in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm guessing this is not Cleveland, Tennessee. Luis Rosa versus Yoon Evans. Okay, it's not the one I was looking for. At Paris. Nope. Fresno, California. Jose Ramirez versus Mike Reed. Nope. Oh, here we go. Uniondale, New York. Home of the Islanders, or used to be home of the Islanders. Danny Jacobs taking on Luis Arias, 12-round middleweight fight, which I have to imagine is going to be an eliminator. I forgot all about this. This is going to be at the Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. Look, I think Jacobs looked really good against Triple G. Some people thought he won the fight. I thought the scoring that he was closer than what the scoring gave. And I expect him to get past Arias and move on into title contention. That's probably about... I thought there was a heavyweight fight out there somewhere this weekend. I don't know. I'm just, scanning and seeing this. Okay, enough of this. Get out of... Dan Rayfield, get off my computer screen. Big Baby Miller takes on Wok. Eyes Joshua showdown. Heavyweight contender Jarrell Big Baby Miller is not participating in an official world title elimination fight Saturday night in New York, but he might be auditioning for a shot at unified world title holder Anthony Joshua. And Deontay Wilder says to Joshua, fight or shut up. Okay, that's it for any big news. That's it. All right, anyhow, I've been doing some research on the scoring in boxing, and you know I've been a very vocal complainer of what's been happening with the scoring. So I did a little bit of research. I want to show you what my research entails. It's one of my daily, let me see. You see this? Can you see this? It's a lot of scribble. Okay. I went back in history, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I figured, you know, there's always been bad decisions in boxing. Going back into the 20s and 30s and 40s, there's always been bad decisions. Always. But it seems like it's more prevalent now than it ever has been. And I'm talking, you know, again with Triple G and Canelo. But here's the deal. I went back and I thought to myself, there's been some crazy scoring back in the 80s on certain fights. And ones that I saw with my own eyes. And I think to myself, how could the scoring be, you know, not that it wasn't close, but that one guy didn't lose that many rounds in this fight. I'm going to give you 3 examples, okay? One of the most egregious, okay? What my theory is when we had 15-round title fights, judges were allowed, not that they're disallowed now, they were allowed, permitted, never questioned about scoring rounds even. It was generally accepted. Now, it's generally frowned upon. So let me give you 3 examples that I came up with. Things that I see that are stored back in the memory banks. June 20th, 1980. The brawl in Montreal. Defending WBC welterweight champion Sugar Ray Leonard versus former undisputed lightweight champion Roberto Duran. Here the scoring as follows. 145, 144 for Duran. 148, 147 for Duran. Remember, 15-round title fight. 146, 144 for Duran. I broke this down to what combination of scoring rounds to each fighter was to come up with these numbers. Listen to this. The first judge, who had the fight scored 145, 144, had this 15 rounds, remember. 6 rounds for Duran, 5 for Leonard, 4 rounds even. This is factual. I'm not making this crap up, okay? Here we go again. The next judge, who I think was from Italy, I think his name was Paletti. 148, 147. All right, you ready for this? 3 rounds for Duran, 2 rounds for Leonard, 10 even. And listen to how this math goes. 3 times 10 on a 10-point must system is 30. The 2 rounds he lost, 2 times 9 equals 18. And then 10 rounds at 10 points is 100. So 100 plus 30 is 130, plus 18 is 148. That's how you get to 148. Now on Leonard's side, 2 rounds he won, 10 points. 3 rounds that he lost, 3 times 9 is 27. So we got 20, 27, and 10 rounds that were even, another 100 points. They say Duran's right. 3 times 10 is 30, 2 times 9 is 18, and 10 times 10 is 100. So you have 100 plus 30 plus 18 makes 148. Then you have 100 plus 27 plus 20 makes 147. In a 15-round fight, 3 rounds to 2 with 10 even. The last judge had it 146, 144. That was 6 rounds for Duran, 4 rounds for Leonard, 5 rounds even. 1/3 of the fight this man saw is even. Okay, that's just one example. Okay. The next fight, high profile. Marvelous Marvin Hagler, November 1983 versus Roberto Duran. You ready? First judge, 144, 142. Now these sound kind of reasonable because that means Marvin Hagler had to have lost 6 rounds in the fight. Okay, so when you've got 150 points being a perfect winning every round or at least tying every round, the distance from 150 down is what you look at to see, kind of like with now, it's 120 is a perfect shutout, 120, 108. So when you see a score of 115, you know the guy's lost 5 rounds of the fight, at least, or he's been knocked down. All right, so Hagler Duran, first judge, 144, 142. Okay, that comes out to 8 rounds for Hagler, 6 rounds for Duran, and 1 even. That makes 144, 142. I kind of disagree with this, but I'll get to that in a second. The second judge, 146, 145, Hagler over Duran. That's 5 rounds for Hagler, 4 rounds for Duran, and 6 rounds even. Okay? I scored that fight 11 rounds to 4 for Hagler. As a person wanting Duran to win the fight. 11 rounds to 4 for Hagler. Okay. The third judge, 144, 143. 7 rounds for Hagler, 6 rounds for Duran, and 2 even. Is that right? 7, 6? Yeah, 15. Okay. And 2 even. All right. I don't know what they were watching, but they justified their scoring by making close rounds even, the ones they couldn't decide. The right guy won the fight. The scoring was much tighter than the layman at home thought it was. The newspaper in New York, New York Newsday, had this fight scored like 12 rounds to 3 or 11 rounds to 4 for Hagler. I thought it was 11 rounds to 4 for Hagler. Okay, enough of that one. The last fight, as this video is getting long now, the last fight on ABC's Wide World of Sports in, I believe, 1983. WBA featherweight champion Eusebio Pedrosa taking on Rocky Lockridge in a rematch. The first fight was an atrocious decision where Lockridge won in our opinion, meaning my dad and I, won the fight like 10 rounds to 5. And Pedrosa got a decision in New Jersey. This was in I think this was in San Remo, Italy, or somewhere in Italy. Here's the scoring of this fight. You ready? 146, 145 for Pedrosa. This breaks down to 5 rounds for Pedrosa, 4 rounds for Lockridge, 6 even. Okay? The next judge had it 147, 146. Okay? 4 rounds for Pedrosa, 3 rounds for Lockridge, 8 rounds even. Okay? The last judge has it 147, 142. This is 8 rounds for Pedrosa, 3 rounds for Lockridge, 4 rounds even. Now, let me explain to you about that card. I thought the final score was more indicative of what happened in that fight. That Pedrosa won the fight legitimately, and there was a gap where, Lockridge needed a knockout going into the championship rounds. So I've just given you 3 fights that I saw with my own eyes, and I'm telling you that the reason why there are 2 reasons that we have these decisions the way they are now. 1, the title fights are an even number of rounds. Duh. Everything's a 12-round fight now. Even when you have some MMA guy come in and challenge Floyd Mayweather, it's a 12-round fight. Okay, that's 1. 2, judges are frowned upon because of the evenness, the even rounds, or the less rounds in a championship fight, not to score rounds evenly. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I believe, and I just gave you 3 medium, meaning Pedrosa and Lockridge, to high profile, the Duran-Leonard, Duran-Hagler fights, that lots of rounds were scored even, and the right guy got the decision. Give me your thoughts and comments about this, because I don't know if anybody else has ever picked up on this, but I knew in my mind that you go back through BoxRec and look at some of these fights and the scoring, and look at a championship, all these 15-round championship fights, where if the scores, let me put it this way, in a fight where no knockdowns are scored in a 15-round fight, and the fight is split right down the middle, between one fighter wins the fight by 1 point, that's 8 rounds to 7. The score in that fight should be 143, 142. That's what the score is for somebody who wins a fight 8 rounds to 7, where every round is awarded to a fighter 10 to 9. Look at some of these scores where you see almost every one of them is the winner gets 148 points, 147 points, 149 points, and there's not a score for the challenge or the loser in the 130s. That's where your clue comes that there's a bunch of rounds scored even. That's going to do it for this episode. Keep an eye out. November the 12th and November the 13th are important dates in boxing. Thanks, everybody.